Thank you very much for staying with us. So let's begin with what makes Lagos tick: social and commercial potential. The chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum and governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, the deputy speaker of House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, and some leading Igbo businessmen met with the Lagos State governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, to resolve the conflict generated by demolition of structures at the Alaba International Market, Lagos. Igbos have now been reassured that they are free to go about their legitimate businesses in Lagos without any fear. The meeting also resolved the rancor generated by outcome of the 2023 general elections. Gentlemen, so according to reports, this is like a follow-up to an earlier meeting held that involved the governor of Enugu State, that's Pitamba. So it's beautiful to see that sensitive issues like this can be resolved amicably. Let me start with you.
Well, I think I first of all commend the efforts of the governors, because it shows that they realize their constituency is not just within their state alone. Whatever affects their own people outside, their territorial space, is also of concern to them. And then you realize that most of these people are from different parts of Southeast. When it's time to vote, they go back home to vote. And so I think what the governors did, should be commended. However, we have to look at objectively at the positions of both parties. The Lagos State government is saying that there are some 17 buildings, and according to the Lagos State government, beyond redemption, that needed to be demolished. And I think demolition is not just restricted to a particular place. It has been ongoing in Lagos State. We all know, even where I live, I think a small bridge is being constructed and some buildings were, demolished in that area. So I think the Lagos State government, we need to also understand its own context. There is a problem of dealing with urban renewal, which is a major problem. After years of military rule, no respect for urban planning laws, no people build just anyhow. Under the military, you can just get your approval, because of corruption, because of lack of transparency. And this thing went on for about 27 years. So that inherited problem is there. And when you are trying to remodel the city, you will confront some of these challenges. Alaba was first put in place around 1978 under the military government. And it was based on the conjecture, that Lagos was witnessing at that time. At that place, there was no local authority until I think 1989, when the local government was created for them. So since that time, for years under military rule, there were no people don't have respect for. It's not just related to Alaba alone. So I think there is that challenge of remodeling Lagos, which there's no way the government will not confront some of these problems. But at the same time, we also have to realize that people's livelihood is involved. So we have to balance, both, the interests of both parties. But I think setting up a committee is a very unique thing. Okay. And I will advise that committee should not just look into demolition of buildings or no demolition of buildings alone. I know there are indigenous people in that area, that community. The history of Alaba or Jolukawe did not start with the Alaba market. It's been over 400 years. So there are people that own that land who are also complaining that they didn't get enough compensation when that land was taken away from them. Most of these people that own this land, billions of funds are made on their own ancestral land, but nothing comes to them. When you go there, you see them as, carrying load, being cobblers, nothing to feed on, nothing to live on, and it's their ancestral land. So that committee should have a broad mind to look at all the facets of issues that are involved. But I think it's a good development, and that's why we always tell people that when there is a conflict, we must look for a way to resolve it. And there is no dispute that we cannot resolve if we are really practicing democracy. So I think it's a good development forward, and I hope the committee will be able to look at all the issues involved and then come out with a resolution that will satisfy all the parties involved.
All right, so I would like you to react to this very important point I you just raised. But before then, how necessary was this peace initiative?
I think it's good, but at the same time, when I heard that leaders from the Southeast, left whatever they were doing to come to Lagos over this matter. I was also shocked because I think the issues are very straightforward, and that's part of what you are now. It is just unfortunate that because of the ethnic coloration that was brought to bear on the 2023 elections, we're only focusing on this issue on Alaba as if it was a fallout of that election.
I mean, it's been there.
It's been there. These buildings that have been demolished and are also scheduled for demolition, they've been marked since 2016. It's just unfortunate, like we've said a couple of times on this program, that government lacks the political will a lot of times to act on pending disasters. We've seen a lot of buildings going down in Lagos. And by the time the people in charge, the authorities that are coming out to speak, they will say, we've marked it for demolition a long time ago. So what have you been doing?
No action.
If you have 349 buildings that are defective in a marketplace, and not just any marketplace, Alaba market, that millions visit every day, and you are allowing them to still stand today, then it's an indictment of the government.
Absolutely.
Big one. So if you have demolished 17, and some people are saying, see, we've come to make peace, then for me, it means they don't understand what the issues are. It means what you are saying to the Lagos state government is, leave these buildings to kill our brothers and sisters. Also, it's been established that a lot of these places that we are talking about, they are like shanties where hoodlums, criminals hide. Just this year, some shanties were set ablaze in that area, and arms and ammunition brought out. A lot of people were arrested with weed and other drugs. So if we are looking at what the real issues are, I don't see a need for that meeting. But if you are talking about the ethnic coloration introduced into the last elections, well, maybe that's what they have come to resolve. But we should not resolve that issue at the expense of people's lives. Because when it happens, we are now going to cry again. Government will budget some money, give to the families of the bereaved, whereas we could have prevented it. And that for me, is what should be discussed. If the government cannot afford to, on its own, say, okay, we are going to build, because we've seen areas where government took over markets. For instance, Alade Market, Allen Avenue, is still pending. People were taken out of those places, a couple of them. Until today, government is yet to fulfill its promise to replace those buildings brought down in order to give those who are trading there back their means of livelihood. If government cannot do it, we've seen areas where you have the PPP. Give it out. Let people trade in an environment where they feel secured. Let them trade in environments where area boys are not the ones who are lording it over them. Let buildings not crumble on them while they are trading. That, for me, is what is of more importance than saying that you are coming to make peace. I don't see any peace in this. It's purely a matter of saving lives. Purely for me.
All right, so Mr. Doyi, I mean, you just talked about the lack of political will of the government to deal with pending disasters. Where do we go from here?
Well, there's no doubt that is, a very important aspect of the debate. And like we have said, it's not just Alaba alone. There are all sorts of, some of these buildings that you will see that collapse. There have been warnings for months. Nothing is done as part of the government.
Yes.
And when the building now collapses, when you go back, you discover that people have been giving warnings for more than 6-5 months, even sometimes years. So the government needs to assert its political will, because what is important is the utilitarian value, the good of the general public, their welfare, their livelihood, to save lives.
So how huge is the impact
carried away by sentiment?
How huge is the impact of corruption on this particular issue? I mean, we have several distressed buildings in Lagos.
Well, we've had so many stories, both confirmed and unconfirmed, of people being sacked in government for, including commissioners, for taking bribes or doing shady things when it comes to demolition. And I hope that is not the case here. I sincerely hope that it is this issue of don't let it be seen as we, Lagosians or Monile, against the Igbos, who are our visitors. Because as far as this country is concerned, there is no visitor anywhere. It's just unfortunate that certain pronouncements come in the midst of issues like this. There was a pronouncement that went out by the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, saying the people will want to claim back their economic life. We are all Nigerians, and we can be anywhere. We can find ourselves anywhere. There was a time that most of those who were local government chairmen in some states in the far north, Sokoto, Zamfara, and the rest, they were people from Ogbomoso in Oyo State who settled in there and grew with the people. So there is nothing wrong once businesses are done genuinely and legally, following the laid down rules and laws. Nothing is wrong. But in this case, where people take bribes to ensure that some buildings are not demolished, you mark them. Let me quote the general manager of the Lagos State Building Control Agency, who said some of the buildings have been marked for demolition several times. Meaning, they go there, by the time they are coming back, the owners have repainted it, covered up the seal, and then still go mark it again. Such people should be in prison because there are laws guiding those things. That once there is a seal on your building, you don't have a right to remove it. So what happened? Who were those who went back there to check on these buildings and found that the owners have removed the seal or painted the markings on the wall? Those people should be in prison by now.
All right, so Mr. Adoye, I like the direction Mr. Dotun has taken us because to wrap this up, I mean, nearly every tribe in the country has one or two persons living in Lagos, so we cannot overemphasize the importance of peaceful coexistence.
That is right. But at the same time, we need to also be conscious of international laws on the rights of indigenous peoples. You know, all over the world, indigenous peoples are fighting to preserve their history, preserve their culture, preserve their heritage from cosmopolitan, from cosmopolitan developments that may overwhelm and lead to their own extinction. So history, Lagos, and just like Onitsha anywhere, has its own history that cannot be demolished because of civilization. So those culture, those traditions, those indigenous knowledge, those values, those sacred groups that they have kept for centuries cannot be subverted by industrialization. And that's why the United Nations is very clear on it. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, that most countries, almost every country, at least about 143 countries, are subscribed to. You know what is going on in Abuja now? They have about 2 million people that their lands were taken away, only stipends were paid to them. And they are getting nothing. They are rising up now, about 9 ethnic groups, saying, look, this is our land, this is our culture. In fact, when I went, they were having a meeting and I was attending Abuja. They said where they have the National Stadium was an ancestral worship place for them. That even the actual rock was a sacred group for them. It was taken over by the federal government. It's caused a whole lot of conflict in the Great Religion, in Maghreb, in East Africa. So we cannot lose sight of that issue in Lagos. And I think that's what the speaker was talking about, the state assembly, that our culture, the heritage of Lagos, the values must be preserved. At the same time, recognizing the national constitution that people have the right to live wherever they want to live.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's move on. The